In this episode, Golden and I discuss Star Trek Lower Decks, Season 2. Full speed ahead.
The Omega Beam. Full power. The Omega Beam.
Welcome to the Omega Beam number 147. I'm your host, Oren Merton. In some ways, this is a golden era for Star Trek fans. Paramount Plus in the USA, Science in Canada, and Netflix around the world are streaming all the previous movies and TV shows in the Star Trek universe, and there's a lot of new Trek shows that are currently airing. The animated Star Trek show Lower Decks, which was created by a head writer for Rick and Morty, is now in its second season, and we're here to talk about it. Our discussion is pretty spoiler-free, so if you've seen it or not, you're good to go. And let's get to it.
And now we take you into the bowels of one of the ships, the USS Cerritos, for Lower Decks.
Season 2.
Season 2.
I dug this season. You know, it's cartoon, so it's a comedy, so clearly this isn't the kind of thing that you take as seriously as you do the other Star Trek shows. I saw Will Wheaton, who does a show, a web-only or streaming-only show called The Ready Room, which is like the discussion show after the Star Trek shows, not just Lower Decks, but all of them. And he called Lower Decks a love letter to Star Trek. And I absolutely agree. This is a love letter. There's so many Easter eggs. There's so many references, and not reverential references, but just mentions in passing.
I think there need to be more Red Dwarf jokes in there because, basically the characters from Red Dwarf were the Lower Decks.
Right. They were the Lower Decks. So I just got a real kick out of this. And by the way, even though these are quote-unquote the Lower Decks, they're still ensigns. I mean, these aren't like, just the people who scrub the toilets.
A couple of them really could be higher level.
Yeah.
They could. Mm-hmm. All four of them that we're mainly following could be a little bit higher.
Yeah, it is funny how they basically show the, bridge crew, the ones we follow on all the other shows. They show the bridge crew as kind of bumbling. And it's the people in the Lower Decks who kind of keep everything running, even though they themselves are kind of
they do have a competition at one point where the Lower Deck gets to be the bridge and the bridge crew get to be the Lower Decks.
Yeah.
And the bridge crew's like, oh, we just sit around here and do nothing? And then they find out the reality of it.
Yeah. The creator is one of the people who originally comes from Rick and Morty, and I think he threads a pretty good needle of using that kind of irreverent humor of Rick and Morty, but at the same time reining it in because you can't go that over the top. You can't go Rick and Morty over the top with a Star Trek show. But he manages to put some edgier, ruder humor that you're not going to find in another Star Trek show.
I love that one of our main characters, Ensign Beckett, actually knows more and has done more than probably some of the bridge crew has ever done.
Right.
And she's fighting being promoted because she doesn't want attention drawn to herself.
Right.
She likes just not having as much responsibility being on the Lower Deck, and spent a good portion of a season hiding the fact that she's related to the captain.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The characters, as are quote unquote fully drawn, but they really are. I mean, it's a 30-minute cartoon, and yet these characters are given backstories and depth, and they're fun. And the animation is very, very good. It's done by a LA company called Titmouse, which does a lot of animation, and it's the animation's great, the voice acting's great, the writing is dead on. This is just a really, really good animated Star Trek show.
If you like Star Trek, but you want something that's a little bit more humorous, Lower Decks is definitely a show to watch.
Absolutely. And if you liked Season 1, Season 2... this is definitely more episodic. There's not a serialized story that goes from the first episode to the last. So you can dip in and out, and it's just fun. It's just really good fun. Season 2 has all the good stuff from season 1. It grows on it a little bit, but that's not the point of a show like this. It's just, this is 30 minutes of just ear and eye candy. And if you're a Trek fan, you will dig the show.
And the stories are good.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they're written by people who are, number one, good comedy writers. And number two, really love Trek.
What was the one about the planet where they're trying to help and they end up helping and it ends up causing much more of a problem?
I don't remember the name of the episode.
They've been told that they have to follow the rules, and so instead of going off and doing what she wants to do, Beckett ends up following the rules and it gets them in trouble.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of the episode. I haven't memorized any of the name of the episodes, but yeah, I mean they have fun with it, and you know it's one of those things where
it's worth time spending.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's worth your time to spend some time on the lower decks.
It definitely is,
and with the lower decks,
as
they venture to the upper decks, or they venture to the hologram room, whatever the
holodeck.
Are they calling it holodeck? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that's what they were still calling it or if they had changed it.
That's still the holodeck.
Or they traveled to the planet because, you know, you always wondered with original Star Trek why the bridge crew is going on the away missions. So now you get to wonder why the lower decks are going on the away missions.
Right. Why are you sending the people who maintain the engines instead? But yeah, it is. It's a good series. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Golden.
You're welcome.
And that's it for this episode. You can find the show notes at theomegabeam.com/147. If you like this episode, please leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts. It's your reviews that help people who like this stuff find our podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions, please drop us a line at info@theomegabeam.com. Be good to yourselves and each other, and we'll catch you next time.
The Omega Beam. Full stop.